I went out to see Captain America Civil War this weekend, and I really enjoyed the film. It was one of the best Marvel Studios films to date, and I'd have to say it was the one that really captured the spirit of a Marvel comic the best. When I look at your Captain America Civil War, it was just like watching a Marvel comic come to life on screen. And you think about that as a guy who's older like I am, and that is amazing when you think about it because taking the action of a static comic panel and literally bringing it to life on a cinematic screen, that is an incredible feat. I never thought I would live to see the day that we would be turning a comic book into a film and literally taking that art and bringing it literally to life. Captain America Civil War is supposed to be an adaptation of 2005 or I think 2006's event storyline Civil War, but they do not take that story straight from the source material. Instead, the Russos and Marvel Studios, what they do is they adapt their own story and just use the title. And I'm glad that they did go in that direction because it shows that they're willing to take risks. And it also shows me that they understood the audience they were going for because they were going for your family audiences and your kid audiences, and they wouldn't be able to digest the very dark material that was in the original Marvel Comics Civil War storyline. Because the original Marvel Comics Civil War storyline was one of the most divisive storylines in comics. It alienated a lot of comic fans and made them not want to buy Marvel ever again. And it's still, a lot of people are feeling the repercussions from that Civil War storyline because it was just, again, so polarizing. And I'm glad that they didn't go in that direction. The story that they presented in Captain America Civil War was a lot better than the comics, and it really reminded me of the 1970s, late 1970s, 1980s Avengers storyline, where Henry Peter Gyrich um, tries to break up the Avengers or tries to get government control over them. In the aftermath of all the events of movies like the original Avengers, um, the Winter Soldier, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and Avengers Age of Ultron, the nations of the world have come together to try to put government control or United Nations control on the Avengers and try to control them as their own, task force. And that's really a very interesting concept because it really shows that how people are afraid of these heroes and the powers that they have and the way their powers could literally destroy the world. In some ways, it really reminds me of 2004's The Incredibles. That's what I really also liked about Captain America Civil War, is that it takes some notes from 2004's The Incredibles, where the supers were doing so much damage that, again, the government wanted the heroes to go into hiding. And what really makes that really work in this story is because it shows the most dangerous force in this story, you know, is not the superheroes and their powers, but the fear of mankind of trying to deal with something that they don't understand. And that really shows not only in the nations, but it also shows in some of the more human characters like your Tony Stark. Now, your Tony Stark, as I saw it, he was really feeling guilty and afraid because in his attempt to try to deal with that whole Shatari thing in the Avengers, he's been trying to overcompensate, and we see that pattern, setting up from Iron Man 3 when he was making all these armors to right in Civil War when he decides, oh, the Avengers need to be put in check. And that, again, goes back to your human nature and trying to control something that you don't understand. Because I think that he couldn't deal with the whole idea of there being beings from really being something that he can't control or understand, which was those Shatari from the Avengers. And then and that's why he's really for those Accords, Serenity Accords, because he feels that he can't control things, so he's trying to control things. Then you have your Captain America who wants the heroes to remain free so that they can go and take care of business. And he's right in that part, but Tony can't hear anything or understand things because of emotion. And all behind the background, we have your Baron Zemo, who is using psychology to manipulate, you know, both sides against each other, and that was really interesting to see. But the whole big problem with Zemo, as I saw it, was, he wasn't a villain you love to hate, but he works in the story because he's really insidious at getting these two sides to go against each other and get them playing on their emotions and not logic. Because if they were to apply logic, they would see how dangerous this guy is. I'm trying not to spoil the movie because there's a lot of great stuff in here, but I saw a lot of great psychological elements in there, and that really is what makes this film really interesting and compelling. Because this guy, he plays to everybody's emotions and has them fighting each other instead of seeing who the real puppet master is. In some ways, kind of reminds me of what I was trying to do in the story I wrote called Temptation of John Hayes, where the Lucifer character pretty much plays with the Eastern character's mind and has her reacting to things until towards the end, as she starts seeing the truth regarding of how this guy was manipulating her and trying to manipulate the John character towards making this compromise that would destroy them. And that's what really makes Captain America: Civil War, you know, a really compelling story. Is that all the psychological elements in the story are really, they're very nuanced, and you really can't really see them because of all the action and adventure. But if you take a real more critical look, you'll be able to see all that psychology in there. And I'd have to say that the characters really remain true to the spirit of themselves. The Captain America and Iron Man acted like Iron Man, but the new characters really popped, especially the Black Panther. Yeah, they truncated his origin for this adaptation, but that doesn't is not a negative. It's actually a positive because a lot of people aren't going to be able to deal with all that exposition, and it gets Black Panther on the screen. And when he gets on the screen, he pretty much dominates all the film. Chadwick Boseman has really strong presence in this film, and he really brings T'Challa to life in this movie. I mean, every scene that he's in, he pretty much steals, and he pretty much, is amazing to look at on screen. The other character that was really great was Spider-Man, and he was a nice contrast to Black Panther's strength and power. He really showed that, what really a hero had, what really makes a hero was his heart. And Tom Holland does an amazing job as Peter Parker. I have to say he's the best Spider-Man to date. Again, they truncate the origin and they make a few changes with Aunt May, but it doesn't spoil the film. It doesn't ruin the character. The character, again, the heart of the character is on the screen, and you really see how great the character is. I mean, he's just an awkward kid, and he's a nice contrast to all of these seasoned heroes. He's just trying to find his bearings, trying to, fit in with these other heroes, and it's really great to see him on the screen because, again, like the Black Panther, he pretty much steals the few scenes that he's in. I wish he was in there a little longer, but that he was in there just enough to move the story forward. And the aftermath of this story, I believe, will be felt for quite a few movies because at the end of this movie, the Avengers are pretty much no more, but this is comic books, so I don't expect them to be out, especially with Infinity War coming up. And I believe that something is going to have to happen in the next several movies to really show people, why the Avengers are needed. Because a lot of people, again, in this story were afraid because there were situations that they could not control. And what they wanted to do was they thought they could control the Avengers to deal with their own fear of the unknown. And that's why they wanted to, put these Serenia Accords, because they were trying to deal with things that they couldn't control. Again, reminding me so much of the Incredibles when they tried to take the supers out of action in order to deal with their inability to deal with the not being able to control the world around them. And Baron Zemo, again, he reminded me so much of Syndrome, and Syndrome was like, he was just, again, a real behind-the-scenes guy, and he was doing all this stuff to try to get even with these heroes, and his quest for revenge really put everything back into chaos and showed everybody why we do need heroes. And I see that pattern setting up for Infinity War, and I think that one's going to be a great movie. If it's as good as this movie, it's going to be, an epic that will pretty much be a superhero cinematic classic. But Captain America Civil War right now is a cinematic masterpiece. And I'm urging you to go out and see it. At least go see it twice because there's a lot of nuanced stuff in the story you're going to miss. And if you don't pay really attention to what's going on screen, especially with the story, you're going to miss out on a lot of great stuff because the story in this film is amazing. It's very well done. It's very well crafted. It will really make you think, and it's really, again, one of the best superhero movies to date. And I really urge you to go out and see it. Um, I highly recommend Captain America: Civil War because this is what superhero filmmaking should be. This is captures the spirit of a Marvel comic on screen, and this pretty much gives you the entire experience of the Marvel universe and what that type of storytelling is in one great film.